Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty's Edge and watched the massive alien ship grow larger on his screen. The Zephyrian vessel was 10 times bigger than his own ship. Its dark metal hull stretched for miles in every direction. Weapons turrets covered its surface like deadly flowers. The ship looked like a floating city built for war. Jake had seen pictures of Zephyrian ships before, but seeing one in person made his stomach tight. The alien empire had ruled the galaxy for 300 years. They controlled 2,000 star systems. Every species that met them either surrendered or died. There were no other choices. "Distance to the Eternal Dominion is now 50,000 kilometers and closing," said Lieutenant Ben Parker from his station. The young officer's voice was steady, but Jake could see sweat on his forehead. "Thank you, Ben. Keep us on course." Jake turned to the woman standing beside him. "Are you ready for this, Ambassador?" Lisa Carter nodded. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent 20 years negotiating deals between Earth's colonies. But this was different. This was bigger than anything any human had ever faced. "I've read their files 100 times, Lisa said. "The Zephyrians always make the same offer. Total surrender or complete destruction. No exceptions." "And our answer?" Lisa looked out at the alien ship. Earth's government was very clear about that. 6 months ago, Zephyrian scouts had found human colonies expanding into new star systems. First contact had been brief. The aliens had scanned Earth's defenses, counted their ships, and measured their technology. Then they had sent a message: prepare to surrender or prepare to die. The message had caused panic on Earth. Humanity had just started exploring nearby star systems. They had basic space travel and simple weapons. Compared to the Zephyrian Empire, they were nothing. Earth's leaders had spent weeks arguing about what to do. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Better to live as slaves than die as free people, they said. Others wanted to fight no matter what. They would rather die standing up than live on their knees. In the end, Earth's World Council had made their choice. They would send Ambassador Carter to hear the Zephyrian terms. Then they would give their answer. The Liberty's Edge moved closer to the alien ship. Jake could see smaller Zephyrian vessels moving around the massive flagship. They looked like sharks circling their prey. "Incoming transmission," said Communications Officer Mary Hill. "The Zephyrians are requesting immediate docking." "Grant permission," Jake said. "Take us in slowly." The human ship moved into a docking bay inside the alien vessel. The bay was enormous. It could have held 50 ships the size of the Liberty's Edge. Zephyrian soldiers waited for them. They stood 8 feet tall and wore dark armor that covered their entire bodies. Their faces were hidden behind metal masks. Jake walked with Lisa toward the airlock. 2 human Marines, Sergeant Joe White and Corporal Amy Green, followed behind them. Their weapons looked like toys compared to what the aliens carried. "Remember," Lisa said quietly, "we're here to listen first. Let them talk. Learn what we can." Boar. Airlock opened and they stepped into the alien ship. The corridors were huge and dark. Strange lights cast purple shadows on the walls. The air smelled like metal and something else that Jake couldn't identify. Zephyrian guards escorted them through the ship. They walked for what felt like miles. Finally, they reached massive doors that were 30 feet tall. The doors opened with a sound like thunder. The throne room beyond was the size of a football stadium. The ceiling disappeared into darkness. Above, hundreds of alien beings filled the space. Some looked like the Zephyrians, but others were completely different. Jake realized these must be representatives from other conquered species. At the far end of the room sat a throne made of black crystal. The being on the throne was larger than the others. His armor was covered in silver markings. This had to be Supreme Admiral Vex Thule, the ruler of the Zephyrian Empire. Lisa walked forward with her head held high. Her footsteps echoed in the massive room. Every eye followed her movement. Jake and the Marine stayed close behind her. When they reached the throne, Vexthul spoke. His voice was deep and filled the entire room without any visible amplification. "So," he said, "the humans have come to surrender." "We have come to hear your terms," Lisa replied. Her voice was calm and clear. Vexthul laughed. It was a sound like breaking glass. Terms? There are no terms. There is only submission or death. You will surrender all weapons. You will dismantle your military. You will provide tribute of 1,000,000 humans each year to serve in our labor camps. You will accept Zephyrian governors on all your worlds. Your species will exist only to serve the Empire. The alien ruler leaned forward on his throne. These are not negotiations, human. This is your reality. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are weak. Your weapons are useless. You have exactly one choice. Surrender now or watch your species die. Lisa stood silent for a long moment. Jake could see her hands trembling slightly. The weight of humanity's future rested on her shoulders. Every person on Earth, every human colony, every dream of freedom depended on what she said next. Finally, she spoke. We reject your terms completely. The throne room fell silent. Hundreds of alien beings stared at the small human woman who had just done the impossible. No species had ever refused the Zephyrian ultimatum. No one had ever said no to the Empire. Vexthol rose from his throne. His massive form towered over Lisa. What did you say? Lisa's voice grew stronger. I said we reject your terms. If you want our worlds, our freedom, our people, then you'll have to take them by force. You asked for war, Admiral. Now you have it. The Supreme Admiral's roar of rage shook the entire room. You dare refuse the Empire? You insignificant insects think you can fight us? We have destroyed species far more advanced than yours. Maybe, Lisa said, but they weren't human. Chaos erupted in the throne room. Alien voices shouted in a dozen different languages. Some sounded shocked, others sounded afraid, a few sounded excited. Jake grabbed Lisa's arm. Time to go, he said. They ran for the exit as Zephyrian guards moved to stop them. Sergeant White and Corporal Green opened fire, their weapons crackling against alien armor. The sound of battle followed them through the corridors. They reached the Liberty's edge just as the ship's engines roared to life. Ben Parker had kept the ship ready for immediate departure. They blasted out of the docking bay as Zephyrian fighters scrambled to pursue them. As they jumped to hyperspace, Jake looked at Lisa. You know what you just did? She nodded. I just declared war on the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Any regrets? Lisa smiled. None at all. Let's go home and get ready to fight. 3 weeks after Ambassador Lisa Carter's declaration of war, the Zephyrian Second Fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Proxima Station. Admiral Kethamore stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled behind his metal mask. This would be easy. Work. Report, he commanded. Long-range sensors show minimal human defenses, said his tactical officer. 1 small space station and perhaps 20 human vessels. All appear to be older designs. Kethamore nodded. The humans had made a foolish choice. Supreme Admiral Vexthol had given him 100 ships and orders to crush this rebellion quickly. The Second Fleet was more than enough to destroy every human in this system. Are the humans attempting to communicate? He asked. No, sir. They appear to be maintaining radio silence. Good. They know death is coming. On Proxima Station, Colonel Dan Phillips watched the alien fleet approach. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his hands were steady on the control panel. He had been a soldier for 30 years. He knew how to wait. Colonel, they're getting closer, said Lieutenant Carol Stone from her position at the sensor station. 100 Zephyrian ships confirmed. Thank you, Lieutenant. Signal all ships to maintain position. No one fires until I give the order. The HFY station's main corridor was busy with activity. Soldiers ran between positions checking weapons and equipment. Everyone knew this was the moment that would decide humanity's fate. In the station's lower levels, Dr. Helen Grant worked frantically in her laboratory. She had spent months studying captured Zephyrian technology, looking for weaknesses. The breakthrough had come just 2 weeks ago. The frequency modulation is ready, she told her assistant, Dr. Mark Johnson. The mining charges have been modified exactly as we calculated. Are you sure this will work? Mark asked. Helen looked at the data on her screen. Zephyrian shields operate on a specific energy wavelength. If we can create the right resonance pattern, their shields will collapse completely. And if you're wrong, then we all die. The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation. Admiral Kethmore studied the human positions with growing confidence. The humans had arranged their ships in a defensive cluster around the station. It was a weak formation that would be easy to break. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Target the space station first. Once it falls, the human ships will surrender." The first wave of Zephyrian ships opened fire. Energy beams cut through space, toward the human positions. The beams struck the station's shields and the shields of the human ships. Explosions lit up the darkness. Colonel Phillips watched the energy readings on his display. The station's shields were holding, but not for long. The human ships were taking damage, but staying in position. "Signal Dr. Grant," he said. "Tell her, it's time." In her laboratory, Helen Grant activated the modified mining charges. The charges had been placed throughout the asteroid field surrounding Proxima Station. Each charge was designed to create a specific frequency when it exploded. "Detonating. Charges in sequence," she announced. 3, 2, 1 mark. The asteroid field erupted in a chain of explosions. But these were not normal explosions. Each blast created a wave of energy that spread outward in a precise pattern. The waves combined and grew stronger as they traveled toward the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Kethmore felt his ship shake as the energy wave hit. Warning lights flashed on his bridge. His tactical officer looked up from his station with confusion. "Sir, our shields are fluctuating. Power levels are dropping across the fleet. What is causing this?" "Unknown, sir. The energy wave appears to be disrupting our shield generators." The wave hit the entire Zephyrian fleet at the same time. One by one, their shields collapsed. Ships that had been protected by energy barriers were suddenly vulnerable to human weapons. Colonel Phillips smiled grimly. "All ships, attack now. Target the lead vessels." The human ships broke from their defensive formation and attacked. They were smaller and faster than the Zephyrian vessels. Without their shields, the alien ships were easy targets. Commander Rick Stone led the first wave of human fighters. His squadron had been hiding behind the station, waiting for this moment. The small, agile ships swarmed around the larger Zephyrian vessels like angry bees. "This is Stone to all units," he said over the radio. "Their shields are down. Hit them hard and fast." The battle became a massacre. Zephyrian ships that had seemed invincible were destroyed one after another. Their weapons were powerful, but they could not track the fast-moving human ships. Their armor was strong, but it could not stop concentrated fire from multiple directions. Admiral Kethmore watched his fleet die around him. This was impossible. The humans were supposed to be weak. Their technology was supposed to be primitive. How were they winning? "Sir, we've lost 60% of our ships," his tactical officer reported. "Recommend immediate retreat." "No," Kethmore snarled. "We do not retreat from humans. Continue the attack." But the battle was already over. The remaining Zephyrian ships were surrounded and outnumbered. One by one, they were destroyed by human weapons. The flagship was the last to fall. Commander Stone watched the final explosion from his fighter's cockpit. The alien admiral had refused to surrender, choosing to die with his ship rather than face the shame of defeat. "Proxima Station to all units," came Colonel Phillips's voice over the radio. "Cease fire. The battle is over." The human ships regrouped around the station. They had lost 12 vessels and over 300 crew members. But they had destroyed the entire Zephyrian Second Fleet. 100 enemy ships were now floating. Debris. Dr. Helen Grant sat in her laboratory, staring at the sensor readings. Her plan had worked perfectly. The resonance frequency had collapsed the Zephyrian shields exactly as she had calculated. "We did it," Dr. Johnson said. "We actually beat them." "This is just the beginning," Helen replied. "Now they know we can fight back. They'll send more ships next time." News of the victory spread quickly through human space. Every colony, every settlement, every ship received the same message. Humanity had won its first major battle against the Zephyrian Empire. But the news traveled beyond human space. Throughout the galaxy, on worlds conquered by the Empire, other species heard about the impossible victory. The Zephyrians could be defeated. Their ships could be destroyed. Their empire could be challenged. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, A human prisoner named Captain Nick Torres heard the news from a smuggled radio transmission. He had been captured 3 months ago when the Zephyrians attacked his transport ship. Now he was forced to work in the alien mines alongside hundreds of other prisoners. "Did you hear?" whispered Private Sam Miller, another human prisoner. "Our people destroyed an entire Zephyrian fleet." Nick nodded. "I heard. Pass the word to the others. Tell them quietly. The time for hiding is over." Across the galaxy, the impossible had happened. The Zephyrian Empire had suffered its first major defeat in 300 years. The humans had proven that the aliens could be beaten. But Admiral Kethmore's death had one final consequence. When news of the defeat reached the Zephyrian capital, Supreme Admiral Vexthol flew into a rage that shook the entire Imperial Palace. "Impossible," he roared. "How can primitive humans destroy our ships?" His advisors had no answers. The humans had used some kind of new weapon or tactic. The Second Fleet's final transmissions mentioned shield failures, but the details were unclear. "Double the size of the Third Fleet," Vexthol ordered. "Send 200 ships this time, and bring me the human responsible for this defeat. I want to kill him myself." The war between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire had begun with words. Now it would continue with blood and fire. But for the first time in 3 centuries, the Empire had learned what it meant to lose. The news of the Second Fleet's destruction reached every corner of the galaxy within days. On the Zephyrian capital world, Supreme Admiral Vexthol stood in his war room surrounded by maps and tactical displays. His advisors kept their distance. Everyone knew the Admiral's rage was dangerous. "How is this possible?" Vexthol demanded. "We have ruled for 300 years. No species has ever defeated us in open battle." General Mordak, his senior military advisor, cleared his throat. Carefully, "The humans appear to have developed new weapons technology. Our shield systems were somehow compromised. Then adapt our shields. Upgrade our defenses. I want the Third Fleet ready in 1 week. Sir, with respect, perhaps we should study this. Defeat more carefully before—" Vexthol's hand moved faster than the eye could follow. General Mordak collapsed to the floor, dead. The other advisors stepped back in fear. "Anyone else have suggestions?" Vexthol asked. The room remained silent. Far across the galaxy on the mining world of Kepler 442b, Captain Nick Torres crouched in the darkness of Mineshaft 7. Around him, 20 other prisoners waited in the shadows. Half were human. The others belonged to different alien species that the Empire had conquered over the centuries. "The guards change shifts in 10 minutes, whispered Zara, an Altarian woman whose blue skin was covered in mining dust. "That gives us our window." Nick nodded. "Remember, we take their weapons first. Then we secure the communication center. Once we control that, we can coordinate with the other mines." The prisoners had been planning this rebellion for weeks. The news of humanity's victory had spread through the prison camps like wildfire. For the first time in years, the conquered species had hope. "What about the orbital defense platforms?" asked Kev, a young human engineer. "They'll call for reinforcements." "That's where Maya comes in," Nick said. Maya Chen was not a prisoner. She was a human intelligence operative who had been working undercover on Kepler 442b for months. She had infiltrated the planet's communication network and was ready to jam all outgoing transmissions when the rebellion began. The mine shaft fell silent as footsteps echoed in the tunnel above. 2 Zephyrian guards walked past, their armor clanking with each step. They carried energy rifles and wore the standard black uniforms of the prison service. Nick counted to 10 after the footsteps faded. Then he gave the signal. The prisoners moved like shadows up the shaft. They had practiced this route dozens of times during work periods. Every step was planned. Every movement was coordinated. The first guard never saw them coming. Zara's strong hands wrapped around his throat while Nick grabbed his weapon. The second guard had time to shout a warning before Kev tackled him to the ground. "Go, go, go," Nick whispered. The prisoners spread out through the mining complex. They moved in small groups, taking out guards and securing key positions. Their years of forced labor had taught them every corner of the facility. Maya Chen sat in the communications center, her fingers flying over the alien control panels. She had spent months learning the Zephyrian systems. Now she activated the jamming devices she had secretly installed. All outgoing transmissions blocked, she reported into her hidden radio. The garrison can't call for help. Across the mining complex, the rebellion was spreading. Prisoners who had been broken by years of slavery suddenly found their courage. They attacked their guards with mining tools and bare hands. The Zephyrian garrison was caught completely off guard. They had ruled through fear for so long that they never expected resistance. Their prisoners were supposed to be broken, defeated, hopeless. But the news of humanity's victory had changed everything. If the mighty Zephyrian fleet could be defeated, then maybe the guards could be defeated too. Within 2 hours, the entire mining complex was under prisoner control. The Zephyrian guards who survived the initial assault were locked in their own prison cells. The prisoners had captured enough weapons to arm a small army, but Kepler 442b was just the beginning. On the agricultural world of Vega Prime, the Centauri workers received Maya's coded transmission. They rose up in their farm compounds, overwhelming their Zephyrian overseers. On the factory world of Altair Station, the crystal miners seized control of the production facilities. The rebellion was spreading faster than the Empire could respond. Maya's communication network linked dozens of worlds. Each successful uprising inspired others to join the fight. General Alex Turner stood in Earth's military command center, watching the reports flood in. The gray-haired veteran had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. He had studied every major rebellion in galactic history. He knew that this was humanity's chance. "The uprisings are proceeding on schedule," reported Colonel Kate Rogers, his chief of staff. "We have confirmed rebellions on 37 worlds so far." "Good. Begin Phase 2. Deploy the advisory teams." Earth's military had prepared for this moment. Small teams of human soldiers and specialists were ready to deploy to rebel worlds. They would provide training, weapons, and tactical support to the uprising. Lieutenant Commander Susan Blake led the first advisory team. Her ship, the Defiant, dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler 442b, just as Nick Torres was consolidating his control over the mining complex. "This is Blake to ground forces," she transmitted. "We have supplies and reinforcements." Nick's voice crackled over the radio. "About time. We've got the mines, but the Zephyrians will send ships soon." "Not if we can help it," Susan replied. Defiant's cargo bay was packed with advanced human weapons, pulse rifles, plasma grenades, portable shield generators, everything the rebels needed to fight back against their oppressors. But more important than the weapons was the knowledge. Human military advisors spread across the rebel worlds, teaching guerrilla tactics and asymmetric warfare. They showed the rebels how to hit fast and disappear, how to sabotage enemy equipment, how to turn the Empire's own technology against them. On Altair Station, Sergeant Bill Murphy taught crystal miners how to make improvised explosives from their mining equipment. On Vega Prime, Captain Linda Hayes showed farm workers how to use their knowledge of the local terrain to ambush Zephyrian patrols. Each small victory added to the growing momentum. The Empire's forces were scattered across 2,000 star systems. They could not be everywhere at once. When they responded to one uprising, 3 others would begin. Supreme Admiral Vexthul watched the reports with growing anger. Red markers appeared on his tactical display as world after world fell to rebellion. The Empire's control was crumbling. "How many worlds have we lost?" he demanded. 73 confirmed rebellions," replied his new tactical advisor, a nervous, young officer who had replaced the dead General Mordak. "The humans appear to be coordinating the uprisings. Then we crush them all. Activate the 3rd fleet. Prepare the 4th and 5th fleets as well. We will drown these rebellions in blood." But even as Vexthul spoke, more red markers appeared on his display. The rebellion was spreading faster than he could stop it. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Zephyrian Empire was losing control. On Earth, Ambassador Lisa Carter stood before the World Council. The woman who had started this war with her defiant words now faced the consequences of her actions. The Rebellions are succeeding beyond our wildest hopes, she reported. But we must be prepared for the Empire's response. They will not let this go unanswered. What do you recommend? Asked the Council President. We prepare for the worst. They will send everything they have against us. We need to be ready. Lisa looked out at the faces of Earth's leaders. Some showed fear. Others showed determination. All of them understood that humanity had crossed a line from which there was no return. The rebellion that had started with one woman's words was now a galaxy-wide revolution. The Empire was striking back with everything they had. The real war was just beginning. Supreme Admiral Vexthul stood before the massive viewscreen on his command ship. Behind him stretched the largest fleet the Zephyrian Empire had ever assembled. 500 warships filled the space around the planet Killer, a vessel so large, it looked like a metal moon. Target confirmed, reported his tactical officer. New Geneva, human colony world, population 2 million. Vexthul smiled behind his mask. The rebellions had spread too far. Conventional forces were not enough to stop them. It was time to send a message that would crush the spirit of every rebel in the galaxy. Begin the approach. I want every species in the galaxy to see what happens to those who defy the Empire. The planet Killer moved through space like a dark omen. Its hull was covered in massive weapon arrays that could crack the surface of a world. No planet had ever survived its attack. No defense had ever stopped it. On New Geneva, Admiral Kate Rogers watched the approaching fleet from the bridge of her flagship. Her defense force consisted of 40 ships and the planet's orbital defense platforms. Against the planet Killer, they might as well have been throwing rocks. Evacuation status? She asked. Transport ships are loading civilians as fast as possible, reported Commander Dave Wilson. But we need more time. At least 6 hours to get everyone off the planet. Kate looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet would be in weapon range in 2 hours. They did not have 6 hours. They might not even have 2. Signal all ships. We hold the line no matter what. Every minute we buy saves more lives. In his laboratory on the defense station, Dr. Paul Martinez worked frantically over his calculations. He had been studying the planet Killer's design for weeks, looking for any weakness. The breakthrough had come just hours ago. The power core is the key, he told his assistant, Dr. Nancy Ford. The planet Killer generates massive amounts of energy to power its main weapon. If we can overload that system, the explosion would destroy everything within 1 million kilometers, Nancy said, including the planet we're trying to save. Not if we time it right. If the overload happens while the planet Killer is charging its weapon, the energy will be directed away from the planet. Paul looked at the device on his workbench. It was small enough to fit in a fighter's cargo bay, but getting it close enough to the planet Killer would be suicide. The Zephyrian fleet entered weapon range of New Geneva. The smaller ships opened fire on the human defense force while the planet Killer moved into position above the planet. Admiral Rogers watched her ships die one by one. The human vessels fought bravely, but they were hopelessly outgunned. The orbital defense platforms lasted only minutes against the alien assault. "Ma'am," said Commander Wilson, "we're getting a transmission from the surface. The evacuation ships are only half loaded." Kate closed her eyes. She had hoped for more time, but hope was not enough against the planet Killer. "Signal the evacuation fleet. Tell them to launch immediately with whoever they have. We can't protect them much longer." Hundreds of transport ships lifted off from New Geneva's surface. They carried 1 million refugees, but they left 1 million others behind. There simply had not been enough time. Pilot Jenny Walsh sat in the cockpit of her modified fighter. The small ship had been stripped of everything except engines, life support, and Dr. Martinez's device. She had volunteered for this mission, knowing she would not return. "This is Walsh to command. I'm beginning my approach." "Copy that, Jenny," came Admiral Rogers' voice. "Good luck." Jenny pushed her fighter to maximum speed. Around her, the space battle raged. Human ships exploded in bright flashes while Zephyrian vessels pounded the remaining defenses. The planet Killer began charging its main weapon. Energy flowed through massive conduits that ran the length of the ship. The weapon would be ready to fire in 10 minutes. Jenny's fighter was small enough to avoid most of the enemy fire. She weaved between the larger ships, using their bulk to hide her approach. Several Zephyrian fighters tried to intercept her, but her ship was faster. "I'm through their outer defenses," she reported. "Beginning final approach." The planet killers. Hall filled her view screen. The ship was so large that she could not see its edges. Weapon turrets tracked her movement, but she was too close now for them to target effectively. Jenny found the access port that Dr. Martinez had identified. It led directly to the ship's main power core. She maneuvered her fighter into position and activated the docking clamps. "Device deployed," she transmitted. "Beginning activation sequence." Inside the planet killer, alarms began sounding. The Zephyrian crew detected the intrusion, but it was too late. Paul's device was already interfacing with the ship's power systems. "Jenny, you need to get out of there now," came Admiral Rogers's voice. "Negative. I need to make sure the device activates properly. If it fails, everyone dies." Jenny worked frantically at her controls. The device was designed to overload the planet killer's power core, but the timing had to be perfect. Too early and the explosion would be too weak. Too late and the ship would destroy New Geneva first. The planet killer's main weapon reached full charge. Energy levels that could destroy a planet flowed through the ship's systems. On the bridge, Vexthol prepared to give the order to fire. "Target locked on the primary population center," his weapons officer reported. "Fire." At that exact moment, Jenny activated Paul's device. The power core overload cascaded through the planet killer's systems, but instead of destroying the ship immediately, it redirected the weapon's energy back into the core. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The planet killer vanished in a ball of pure energy that expanded outward like a new star. The surrounding Zephyrian fleet was vaporized instantly. Jenny's fighter was at the center of the explosion. She had less than a second to realize her mission was successful before the energy wave consumed her. On New Geneva's surface, the people who had not been evacuated watched the sky light up like day. The shockwave that followed shattered windows and knocked down trees, but the planet survived. Admiral Rogers stared at her view screen in amazement. The planet killer was gone. The Zephyrian fleet was gone. Supreme Admiral Vexthol was gone. The Empire's ultimate weapon had been turned against itself. "All ships report status," she ordered. Only 12 human vessels had survived the battle. They were damaged and low on ammunition, but they had won. Against impossible odds, they had saved New Geneva and destroyed the Empire's most feared weapon. News of the planet killer's destruction spread even faster than the earlier victories. Across the galaxy, rebels who had been hiding in fear came out to fight. Zephyrian governors found themselves facing uprisings on every world they controlled. On Earth, General Alex Turner received the report with mixed emotions. The victory was incredible, but the cost had been terrible. Jenny Walsh and thousands of other brave souls had died to make it possible. "The Empire is reeling," reported Colonel Kate Rogers. "Our intelligence indicates massive internal conflicts within their leadership. Some factions want to negotiate. Others want to fight to the death." "And what do we want?" Turner asked. "We want them gone," Kate replied. "All of them. This galaxy belongs to free peoples, not to an empire built on slavery and fear." The destruction of the planet killer had broken something fundamental in the Zephyrian psyche. For 300 years, they had been the strongest force in the galaxy. Now they had lost their most powerful weapon and their supreme leader to a species they considered primitive. But the war was not over. The remaining Zephyrian fleets were regrouping for a final assault on Earth itself. They would throw everything they had left at humanity's homeworld. The rebels throughout the galaxy prepared for the final battle. This was their chance to end the Empire forever. They would not get another one. Dr. Paul Martinez worked on new weapons in his laboratory, driven by the memory of Jenny Walsh's sacrifice. Maya Chen coordinated rebel forces across 100 worlds. Captain Nick Torres led freed prisoners in attacks on Zephyrian supply lines. The galaxy was at war, and for the first time in 3 centuries, the Empire was losing. But the final battle would determine whether that loss became permanent or whether The Zephyrian Empire would rise again from the ashes of defeat. The Zephyrian capital world burned in 3 places. Smoke rose from the Imperial Palace as rebel forces fought through the streets. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 300 years was dying, and everyone could see it. General Alex Turner stood on the bridge of his flagship as the combined rebel fleet approached Zephyr Prime. Ships from dozens of worlds flew together under a single banner. Humans, Altarians, Centauri, and many other species who had suffered under Zephyrian rule. Final approach confirmed, reported his tactical officer. The planetary defense grid is almost destroyed. Alex nodded. The battle had been raging for 2 days. The Zephyrians fought with desperate fury, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Rebel Alliance had ships and weapons from across the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the ground assault from his transport ship. The man, who had carried Ambassador Carter to her first meeting with the Empire, now led the final attack on their home world. All units, this is Morrison. We land in the capital city in 10 minutes. Remember, we want the Emperor alive if possible. The galaxy needs to see justice, not revenge. On the planet's surface, the last Zephyrian defenders prepared for their final stand. Emperor Zekthul had taken command after the death of Supreme Admiral Vexthul. He was younger than his predecessor, but just as cruel. They think they can destroy us, he said to his remaining generals. But we are Zephyrians. We do not surrender. We do not bow to inferior species. General Havmore, the last of the old guard, looked out at the burning city. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider terms. The rebellion has grown too strong. The Emperor's blade moved faster than thought. General Havmore fell dead at his feet. Does anyone else wish to discuss surrender? The Emperor asked. The remaining officers said nothing. Jake Morrison's transport touched down in the Imperial Plaza. Around him, hundreds of rebel soldiers poured out of their ships. The final assault on the palace had begun. The fighting was intense. Zephyrian guards had turned the palace into a fortress. Every corridor was defended, every room was a battleground. But the rebels kept coming. Captain Nick Torres, the former prisoner who had led the first rebellion, fought alongside his old cellmate, Private Sam Miller. They moved through the palace like shadows, using the guerrilla tactics they had learned in the prison camps. Emperor's throne room is just ahead, Nick said. 2 more corridors. The throne room doors were 30 feet tall and made of solid metal. It took explosive charges to bring them down. When the smoke cleared, the rebels found Emperor Zekthul waiting for them. He stood alone before his crystal throne. His royal armor was damaged from the battle. His mask was cracked, showing parts of his alien face underneath, but he held his ceremonial sword with steady hands. So, he said, the slaves have come to kill their master. Jake Morrison walked into the throne room with his weapon lowered. Behind him came dozens of rebel soldiers from different worlds. They represented every species the Empire had enslaved. It's over, Jake said. Surrender now and you'll face trial. Keep fighting and you'll die here. A Zephyrian emperor does not surrender to inferior beings, Zekthul replied. We ruled this galaxy when your species was crawling in mud. We will rule it again. No, said a new voice. You won't. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked into the throne room. The woman whose words had started this war now came to see its end. She looked older than when she had first defied the Empire, but her eyes still burned with determination. You remember me, she said to the Emperor. I'm the human who refused. Your terms. Zekthul raised his sword. I remember. You started this rebellion with your arrogance. I started it with courage, something your people never understood. The Emperor lunged forward with his blade, but Jake Morrison stepped between them. The sword struck his armor and bounced off. Jake's return blow knocked the Emperor to the ground. Zekthul tried to rise, but rebel soldiers surrounded him. The CIA, last emperor of the Zephyrian Empire, was captured alive. News of the Emperor's capture spread across the galaxy in hours. On every world where the Empire had ruled, the remaining Zephyrian forces surrendered. The war was over. 6 months later, representatives from 2,000 worlds gathered on Earth for the founding of the Galactic Democratic Alliance. The new government would be based on equality and freedom, instead of conquest and slavery. Ambassador. Lisa Carter stood before the assembly as its first Secretary General. The woman who had defied an empire now helped build something better in its place. "Today we begin a new age," she said. "Not rule by the strong over the weak, but cooperation between equals. Not empire built on fear, but alliance built on hope." The delegates cheered. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together as friends. The galaxy would never be the same. Emperor Zekathol faced trial for crimes against entire species. The evidence against him filled libraries. Billions had died under Zephyrian rule. Entire worlds had been enslaved. The trial lasted 6 months. Representatives from every oppressed world testified about the Empire's cruelty. In the end, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all charges. The Emperor was sentenced to life imprisonment on a remote world. He would spend his remaining years thinking about the empire he had lost and the freedom he had tried to destroy. Dr. Paul Martinez received the Alliance's highest honor for his scientific work. His weapons had turned the tide of several battles. His courage had inspired others to keep fighting when all seemed lost. Captain Nick Torres became the Alliance's first Minister of Justice. His job was to make sure that no species would ever again suffer as the prisoners had suffered under Zephyrian rule. Maya Chen was appointed head of the new Alliance Intelligence Service. Her communication networks during the war became the foundation for peaceful cooperation between worlds. Admiral Kate Rogers commanded the Alliance Defense Force. Her job was to protect the new government from any threats. But she hoped those threats would never come. Jake Morrison returned to exploring space, but now he carried messages of peace instead of war. His ship visited distant worlds, inviting new species to join the Alliance. On a hill outside Earth's capital city, a memorial was built to honor those who died in the war. The names of heroes from every world were carved in stone. At the top, in letters that could be seen for miles, were the words that had started it all. "You asked for war. Now you have it." Below those words was a new inscription. "They asked for freedom. Now they have it." Lisa Carter visited the memorial often. She would stand before the wall of names and remember the cost of the victory. Jenny Walsh, who had sacrificed herself to destroy the planet killer. General Turner, who had died in the final battle. Thousands of others who had given their lives for freedom. But she also remembered the joy. Children playing in parks on worlds that had known only slavery. Families reunited after years of separation. Scientists sharing knowledge instead of building weapons. The galaxy was free. It had taken a war to achieve that freedom, but it was worth every sacrifice. Sometimes visitors would ask Lisa if she regretted her words to the Zephyrian Empire. If she wished she had found a peaceful solution instead of starting a war. She would always give the same answer. Peace with tyrants is slavery with better conditions. Some things are worth fighting for. Freedom is one of them. The Galactic Democratic Alliance grew stronger each year. New worlds joined voluntarily, drawn by the promise of equality and justice. The old empire was gone forever, replaced by something better, and it had all started with one woman's refusal to surrender. The galaxy belonged to free peoples now. They would guard that freedom carefully, remembering the price that had been paid for it. They would never forget the lesson of the Zephyrian Empire, that power without justice is tyranny, and tyranny must always be opposed. The war was over. The future had begun.